is Jacob. I attended Buckeye, Medina, Ohio for my high school education before Tri-C, and I'm now pursuing an accounting and possibly my CPA degree. Although it's not what I originally went to college for. First, I wanted to become a marine biologist, and that all started with a single saltwater fish tank in my high school biology course. But before all that came my first couple of pets, which were a few fish in a small tank I shared with my brother. It was as basic as any other tank you'd see in a PetSmart or Pet Supplies, plus fake plants and rocks, as well as one of those hang-on-the-back filters that you change the cartridge in once a week. My brother and I had a couple of fish in there, as well as a sucker fish that looks like one of those vacuums that sucks onto everything and scoots around all day long. But one day we were tossing around a marble globe that we had, and not thinking much of it, it hit the top of the tank, cracked it, and dumped water all over the floor. Luckily, we rushed the fish to the store to save them, but the tank wasn't salvageable. I never thought I'd have fish again until my first day in that high school biology course. The teacher had the largest tank I'd ever seen outside of a zoo. It was a 55-gallon fish tank containing nothing but salt water and one fish, a large domino damsel, which if you ask me today, I'd say, eh. But at the time, it was a beautiful fish to me, and because it was saltwater, it made it all the cooler. I wasn't aware saltwater fish could be kept by the average person. Naturally, this made me want to look into it, and when I research something, I really go all out, reading anything and everything I can find to figure out the best way to do something. Next thing you know, my parents bought me a 75-gallon fish tank for Christmas, and I began to purchase everything else. But when you're 17 and you're working at a drug mart, money isn't exactly overflowing from your pockets. So I worked with what I had. The tank sat on and covered up my entire desk I no longer used. Luckily, it was well built and held all of the weight. I bought 5-gallon buckets worth of aquarium salt that you mix in with the water, as well as hundreds of pounds worth of live rock, or what you would typically see in the ocean, covered with algae growth. Purchased all kinds of equipment, ranging from small things like a hydrometer you measure the salinity with, as well as a reverse osmosis filter, which essentially takes normal tap water and turns it into distilled water like you'd see by the gallon in convenience stores. Later, rather than sooner, after months of setup, between work and school, I got my first fish, a yellow tang. Think dory, but all yellow. Next thing you know, it was 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. I even added a puffer fish, which had more character than all the other fish, and a large shrimp that would jump on him to clean him off. Friends and family loved to see all of this, because how often do you get to see colorful fish outside the ocean? My parents loved it, as long as I wasn't accidentally spilling 50 gallons worth of water all over the carpet, soaking my entire bedroom. Whoops. And all this made me want more, so naturally I tried to find larger tanks than what you would buy at your average pet store. Next thing you know, I had not just a 75-gallon tank. I had a 75-gallon, 150-gallon, and a 40-gallon. I started to add some basic coral and bought over $1,000 worth of special lighting to keep that coral alive in the tank. I even had a snowflake eel in the 40-gallon. I didn't have fish tanks anymore. I had a full-size aquarium that was inside of my bedroom. Now, like most things, all good things must come to an end eventually, and it was time for me to go back to college, because that's what I thought I needed to do. And all the aquariums had to be tore down, and I decided to fill that hole the aquariums left by getting certified in scuba diving. Scuba diving is strapping a compressed tank of air, which is a mixture of oxygen and other things, onto your back so you can stay underwater for an extended period of time. I took classes over 6 weeks, which were just like any other college class, 3 hours long, once a week, and with your average professor. Except this wasn't an average professor, it was a dive master with 1,000 dives under his belt, and anything from water below a layer of ice to hundreds of feet deep in the ocean where it's nothing but darkness. You can't see a single thing. I couldn't have been more excited. The classes mainly taught us all the safety precautions around scuba diving, as well as how to keep track of how long we can stay underwater. After the classes, we had 2 pool sessions with actual dive equipment on, as well as 3 actual dives here in Ohio. These all took place in quarries that fill up with rainwater. The first time breathing underwater is unimaginable, but it was worth every penny. That was 4 years ago now, and in those 4 years, both my brother and I have been all over diving. One of our first dives took place in Florida, where he got certified a few days prior. Now, this was our first ocean dive, so we weren't sure exactly what to expect, but little did we know it would be amazing, especially for 2 kids that have never really been outside of Ohio for the most part. We saw every kind of beautiful fish you can imagine, lobsters the size of your torso, 3-foot wide stingrays, and even came within a few feet of a sea turtle. There's nothing quite conveys seeing a sea turtle that close in person and watching it swim off slowly. And even that, none of that even compares to what we saw in Hawaii 3 months ago from now. What was one $20 saltwater fish in a high school biology course turned into nearly $10,000 in aquariums and fish, thousands of dollars worth of scuba equipment, and thousands of dollars even more worth of equipment to record every minute of that, including a drone I bought to take to Hawaii for aerial photography. Deciding to become certified in scuba diving was one of the best decisions I've ever made, and I still love fish tanks to this day. And it's something I will continue to do for the rest of my life. It is a whole other world to explore, and keeping aquariums is one way of having a slice of that world in your own home. I will always love everything aquatic, and we have even booked our first cruise for this upcoming June. Thank you.